The Final Four at the Olympics has been set after some exciting quarterfinal games. We'll talk about that and look ahead to the semis next on today's Locked On NHL Olympic Squad Show.
You are talking puck with the NHL Squad Show. From the Oilers to the Stars, Golden Knights, and the Panthers, the Rangers, Avalanche, and yes, even the Maple Leafs. The Locked On Podcast Network brings together all its local experts to provide the scoops, breakdowns, and comprehensive looks at all the NHL, with plenty of trash talk to go with it. Don't miss the hard hits and glove-dropping hot takes on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. It's time to drop the puck.
Welcome, everybody, to this Wednesday edition of the Locked On NHL Olympic Squad Show. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I'm here with David Morassutti of Locked On Leafs and Zach Berman of Locked On Devils. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I want to thank everyone for making the Locked On NHL Squad Show your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you never miss an episode. And thanks for helping to make Locked On the @1 sports podcast network. I'm here again with David Morassutti of Locked On Leafs, Zach Berman of, Locked On Devils. And guys, 3 overtime games in this quarterfinal round. Your initial thoughts?
If anybody ever tries to suggest that NHLers should not be in the Olympics, they should just not be allowed to have opinions in hockey. This is everything we wanted, right?
Absolutely. 12 hours of just crazy, intense games, 3 great finishes. And yeah, I've watched the Olympics hockey without the NHL players. The quality has just nowhere close. Absolutely nowhere close. And look, there's a big reason why, the IIHF and the IOC, compromise with whatever the NHL was looking for in their demands for this. It's because this is the best players. These are like the whole point of the Olympics is to have best on best. And frankly, the men's hockey tournament has never had that feeling about it since 2014. It just has not had that feeling. And this year you're seeing exactly why that is.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the quality of play is higher. And if the Olympics is supposed to be best on best, this is what you want to see. Now, the flip side of that is injuries. And we did have another injury take place today. But I guess if you want to have best on best, that's something you got to live with.
It's unfortunate. It's a contact sport. It could happen to anybody, right?
Exactly, right? Like, here's the thing. I understand that, you lose your players in a non-NHL event and all those things. But some of these players came to the Olympics hurt. Some of these players, some of these teams lost players even going, from their NHL. So it's just from the NHL side of it, things too, right? So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, all right, you can't mitigate the this sort of thing. Because if you try to tell players, you got to take it easy so you don't get hurt. I'm sorry. You try telling players that they can't be playing at their best for their country. It's not a recipe for success for a tournament like this. So you just have to. It's something you have to live with. Players get hurt in the off season. For things like that are beyond the team's control. So I think that you have to kind of take everything with the caution that these sort of things are going to happen. And look, there are some players getting hurt right now. It's unfortunate, but if you ask any of the players whether they regret coming to these Olympics, I doubt any player is showing any regret for coming to this tournament.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. How about Canada's win earlier today? In overtime, a late goal by Czechia, Andre Palat, tying it up, someone who both Zach and I are quite familiar with. But I
gave him the lead.
Yeah, gave him the lead. And I think I give a lot of credit to both teams. I mean, Canada for eventually winning the game, and Czechia for giving them such a hard battle to the finish.
Never in doubt, right, gentlemen? Never in doubt.
I had something planned if Canada was going to lose this game.
I'm afraid to ask.
Instead, I must just raise my maple syrup and say, "Oh God, I'm going to regret this." Oh, it's so much syrup.
I could give you the real stuff, man. Let me know next time. I'll
This is the real stuff.
right from the maple in Quebec. That's where the good stuff comes from.
Look, never in doubt, right? But didn't I say a few days ago on the squad show who could potentially steal a game and send this whole tournament to chaos? I said Lucas Dostal. Man, he was pretty close to doing that. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Canada, I look at this game and you can tell certain players are banged up. I think every team has players who are banged up. I don't think Nathan McKinnon's at 100%. We know that now losing Sidney Crosby, God, that hurts. But the big one here for me too is, and I'm sure we were going to get to this, Gil, but when you have to play against not only the team, but the refs too, yeah. I'm going there right now, gentlemen, because first off, the penalty that Pasternak scored the goal on, I thought that was a chintzy call. Then the refs decide, you know what, we're just going to close our eyes and not count how many players are on the ice.
That was ridiculous.
When Czechia not only scored the goal, like they scored the go-ahead goal, there were 8 players on the ice at one point in that sequence because players came on, players were coming off. There were 6 players in the celebration. There's a photo of it clear as day. And I'm just like, how does the linesman not go 1, 2, and then I know that the coach for Czechia came out and says, well, it's hard to win when you're playing against 6. And I'm like, you mean it's easier to try to steal a game when you're playing with 6? Because that's what your team tried to do.
Is now a good time to mention that everyone's least favorite NHL official, Chris Rooney, was the head official in this game? Maybe, maybe not.
It's just, they've tried. We all know that IIHF and the Olympic officials have always been a sore spot. One of the few things that in this tournament people have always had an issue with. And it hasn't really been a problem up until this game. Like, let's be honest. And I remember the Czech coach was like, well, they're trying a mix of the NHL, IIHF officials, and we're not seeing I've watched NHL games and things that are called there are not being called here. And I'm just like it really wasn't a problem until this game. It just kind of feels like that. But thankfully, at the end of the day, the hockey gods reward the team that deserves it the most, especially when this beauty right over here, Mitch Marner, who I don't think I've ever said a bad thing about ever on the Locked On Leafs show. Not ever. Like, it's not like this jersey has been banished to the side since July, because he came and he proved maybe he is good in clutch situations.
Can we talk about the Maple Leafs Twitter account tweeting the Canadian flag and then the magic wand?
You know, I'm sure there's some old school Leafs fans who are absolutely triggered by that, but I loved it. I love the fact that you know what, he was a Leaf for all this time, and I think one thing that people need to remember here: the Leafs didn't push Mitch Marner out. They offered Mitch Marner a contract. Mitch Marner, and he actually technically signed the contract with the Leafs, but then asked for the trade. We'll get away from the semantics on that, but like at the end of the day, he was still a Leaf for a good majority, like for the majority of his career. And so I did like that they did that. It's a nice touch. I'm sure he will appreciate that. The replies to that tweet, let's just say, were quite hilarious.
Colorful.
Yes and no, but it goes to show, and the reaction after the fact to all this just goes to show Toronto remains the center of the hockey universe. no matter which way, shape, or form. Still happens.
I was wrapping up my USA Sweden Devils oriented preview when that came across my feed, and I actually ended up wrapping up the show within like 2 minutes of reading it because I couldn't catch my breath. I was losing it.
It was definitely an interesting touch, to say the least. So Sidney Crosby being injured, I mean, that could have a big effect on the playoff race, depending on how long he's out. Losing a superstar, future Hall of Famer for the Penguins, that really could have an impact.
I mean, John Cooper did say Sidney Crosby has not played his last game as an Olympian. What does that mean?
Hopefully, it means he's not too seriously hurt.
Yeah, I know that he's supposed to go and get imaging done, which isn't a good sign when, if once you hear imaging. Now, if this is just a precautionary to make sure everything's okay, but I think we can all agree Radko Gudas is now public enemy number one everywhere.
That wasn't a dirty hit, and I say
it wasn't dirty, but leave Sid alone. I'm sure Locked On Penguins will feel that way too.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Doesn't play Pittsburgh again this year. I double checked. No, they don't. But it would have definitely been interesting if they did.
For sure. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about Team USA's win. Plus, we're going to look ahead to the semifinal round. We'll have all of that and more coming up on the Locked On NHL Olympic Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but it could send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Overtime for Canada, overtime for Team USA. A very entertaining game, low-scoring game, but very entertaining. And the United States advances to the semis with a hard-fought 2-1 win over Sweden. Guys, your first impression about this game?
The first time that Team USA has beaten Sweden in either Olympic competition or Four Nations competition since 1960. And it did not come easy.
Yeah, I mean, look, you give both teams credit. They played, it was a very tight game. It was, I know, not a lot of scoring, but there were chances. Both goaltenders were phenomenal. I'm sure, Zach, you probably felt, even though in the loss, you probably felt great about seeing what Markstrom did in this game.
I have plenty of thoughts about that. This guy was extended after giving up 8 goals for the first time in his career. Would not be the last time this season he gave up at least 8. But the next day, I was in San Francisco. I found out in a Waymo, one of those driverless taxis. I got out of the car and recorded on my phone, and my Twitter was blown up with, "What are you talking about? It's a good extension." I was like, "Guys, I don't like this." No, it was infuriating because my least favorite athlete that has ever played for one of my teams is Aroldis Chapman, who blew a bunch of games for the Yankees, did some terrible things off the field. And I joked about it to my friends. I said, if Jacob Markstrom, after all he has done to the New Jersey Devils this season, turns around and plays lights out against Team USA and steals the game, he's going to be up there in Chapman territory for me. And he very nearly did that. This guy looked like a brick wall, and I'm sitting there, I'm going like, oh, so now you can do this. Okay,
Now,
cool.
Wait a minute. Does that speak more to the poor quality of defense being played in front of him by the Devils? Or does it speak to him rising to the occasion at the Olympics, or a little bit of both?
The Devils defensively have been fine.
Okay.
He has missed so many savable pucks as Devils goalie this year. Like, actually, one of the worst single seasons I've ever seen from a starting caliber goalie ever. You remember a few years ago when Vitek Vanacek was run out of town for like an 895 save percentage? Markstrom is an 881.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that, you know, like Mark and like I felt like with Sweden, all the goalies kind of were like, even Gustafsson, he didn't even dress in this game. Like,
Except for Wallstedt. Why are they not playing him?
yeah, I don't know. Like the Swedish coach, I think that's going to be the biggest thing to come out of this tournament for Sweden. Obviously, not meddling at these Olympics is a huge, like they should never have been in this position. So there's going to be a lot to be said about, you know, the Swedish coach going forward. But man, Quinn Hughes, first off, Gil, oof. You know, when you see an American player like Quinn Hughes that was not there for Four Nations last year, and now I'm hearing from, you know, people talking to me, well, Quinn Hughes wasn't there against Canada last year. Who, you know, how different could things have gone? And like I agree, Quinn Hughes is a game breaker defenseman. Zach could have been a Devil, maybe potentially, right? That is what makes, again, the Olympics just so much better, watching these sort of players, and Quinn Hughes being there and what he brings to that U.S. team. I'll admit it, even as a Canadian, it's great to see, because this is truly the best form of, you know, a Team USA. Also, Austin Matthews was on the ice for the overtime winner, so can't hate on that either. But yeah, I think like Quinn Hughes, just the difference that he brings on the ice when he's playing for Team USA. It's nice to see.
How about Jack?
Yeah.
He was not good in Four Nations. There was a lot of question marks coming into his game and how it would stack up in international competition. He has been awesome, and also had the primary assist on Larkin's goal in regulation.
Yeah, he did. There's one thing that's been bothering me, though, and I wanted to run it by both of you. 3-on-3 overtime in a winner-go-home situation, no, I can't get with that. I want a hockey, and then if they don't score in 10 minutes, it goes to a shootout. I don't want a skills competition or a glorified game of shinny deciding who goes on to the next round and who goes home. Like in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they should play 5-on-5, and if they play until 4:00 in the morning, they play until somebody scores. I don't care. I want this game decided by hockey.
Yeah, you know what? I totally forgot. As soon as overtime was getting ready, and I'm like, oh wait, it's 3-on-3. Yeah. Then the shootout, I'm like, why? Like, look, honestly, the anxiety level goes so much higher with 3-on-3, because one little thing, like, you know, that it benefited Canada. I can't lie on that.
Benefited the U.S. too, because they didn't give up a shot on goal in the overtime.
Yeah, you know, to me, I understand why the NHL did it for the regular season, because they want games to end a lot quicker, and they want fewer shootouts. Although now that's kind of, teams are working the way around that a little bit more, but it's having the more desired effect. But I totally agree with you that in the Olympics, in the playoffs, I think the World Juniors is the same way too. I think in the gold medal game, it does change, though, in the World Juniors. I think in these Olympics, it does change as well in the gold medal game. I'll have to confirm that. But, yeah, I don't like the idea that you come all this way and then a 3-on-3 decides a very important game like this, whether a team gets a medal or not. I do think that 5-on-5, look, you will find a way to win the game 5-on-5. We have seen it. As a Canadian, I have seen it done. 5-on-5 is fine. But I remember when the U.S. had that, you know, it does bring up some great moments, like the shootout. TJ Oshie would tell a lot of people what a shootout can do for your career. But in this stage of the Olympics, I do agree you have to let the 5-on-5 play dictate how the game ends. Not, all right, guys, you fought hard for 60 minutes. For the next 10 minutes, we're just going to shrink everything down and let only three on each side go up and determine how the game ends. I do agree with that.
I'm not going to lie. I love the 3-on-3 in this spot. I thought it was exemplary.
It did help. And I mean, imagine, because there's 3 straight games that went to overtime. It was already a lot of hockey being played. I can understand if those games went longer, but I think if you ask the players, I think every player would tell you, let's do it 5-on-5, because you don't want the 3-on-3. But the thing is, majority of these players now, it's become almost widely accepted to do 3-on-3. But there's a reason why the NHL doesn't allow it in the playoffs. It was never meant to be something in the playoffs. They want there's something about these 5-on-5 games going to second, third overtimes. If you were ever watching the bubble, sometimes a fourth, going a lot further than that. Like, there is something to be said about, you're just going to let these teams battle it out until somebody plays hero. And look, in overtime in the 3-on-3, I don't think it diminishes what a Quinn Hugh does, what a Mitch Marner does, right? But I do think, if you're a team that's on the losing end, you're probably wondering how different it would have been at 5-on-5.
I won't deny it's exciting. I mean, 3-on-3 is very exciting to watch, and it does end sooner. But I want the game to end based on the way the teams play, even when the same way that the game started, basically. So just my, my personal little pet peeve, I guess, about this. And I hope sincerely that we do not see a gold medal decided by either a 3-on-3 or a shootout, depending on, whether or not you're correct, David, about how that ends up working. Anyway, we now have the matchup set for the semifinals. We're going to talk about that coming up next on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. All right, gentlemen, we have 2 more games in the men's tournament coming up. They will be played on February 20th. It'll be Canada versus Finland and the U.S. versus Slovakia. Let's start with Canada and Finland. David, as a Canadian, what concerns you most in a matchup against, in this matchup here?
Yeah, I mean, look, Finland's got good players. I was on a squad show saying that this is a team that has star caliber players that can come in and make life very difficult. And look at who got the overtime winner for Finland, Arturi Lehkonen, who, not seen as a star player, but in these moments, he's, remember in Colorado when in that Stanley Cup run, how big of a role he played in that. So Finland's got guys that you have to be, you have to account for. And look, Czechia gave Canada a good run for the money, and I think Finland can do the same thing. It's a matchup that I know that Canada's usually done pretty good against them. They did at Four Nations. I just think that when you look at how Finland's talent, stacks up against Canada, it's not as big as a gap as maybe some people think. I think there's some players who can play a certain way. Now that I think Czechia kind of gave teams a bit more of a blueprint of how to play against Canada, right? When Connor McDavid's out there, get 2 or 3 guys on him every time the puck goes near him, right? Clog the neutral zone. Don't give a lot of room. And so I do think that that's going to be a tough game. Like I don't I don't think like I was very confident what Canada can do against Czechia. I didn't think that game was going to be that close. I'm not going to have that same idea about Finland. I think Finland is, they got off to a tough start to the tournament, but after that, they kind of they found their groove, right? They stomped Italy pretty good. They beat Sweden pretty handedly, and So like it is going to be a pretty good matchup for Canada. I think sometimes people have been overlooking teams and say, all right, get myself ready for an 8 o'clock Sunday gold medal game. I think now you have to have a lot more respect for your opponent. I don't think Canada's disrespecting opponents, but I think us now, myself as a Canadian hockey fan, you can't go into this game thinking Canada's going to come in and walk away with an easy win.
Finland just has, I think, outside of Canada and the US, the most balanced roster. You have NHL caliber depth on all four lines. You have your star power, your Mikko Rantanens, your Sebastian Ahos,
Miro Heiskanen.
You have those really solid middle six role players, your Rupe Hintz types, Etulo Starine and Anton Lundell, Tolvanen, Eric Halla's having a nice bounce back year. I really like this lineup, and Saros is a good enough goalie once again where if he's on, despite the season he's having, just like Markstrom, he can make you sweat.
No question about that.
I think Canada wins. This feels like 3-2 late regulation.
Let's avoid overtime, all right?
No, not go to overtime. I think
for my blood pressure sake, let's not have another overtime.
3-2 late in regulation. Canada.
David, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I think something similar to Zach. Maybe a 4-3, 4-2 type of game. Canada, I think there were some, the Crosby thing, I think threw some players off, and it threw a lot of things off for this team. But I think you saw the looks on all their faces after that Czechia game. It was like, okay, breathe. The scare is over. Back now, kind of back to it. And so I do think that Canada should feel good about their chances again because they still have the quality. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than, and I think it's going to be another close matchup. Finland will know how to attack Canada now.
Yeah, we shall see how it all plays out. How about Team USA? They have a challenge as well in the semifinal round as they go up against the Slovaks. Who do you think has an easier opponent in this case, the U.S. or Canada?
I think the U.S. has the easier opponent, but at the same time, the Slovaks have just been the darling of the tournament, right? The underdog. Who expected them to get the bye? Who expected Dalibor Dvorsky and Simone Nemec and Juraj Slafkovsky to be like the faces of this Olympic tournament? I think the U.S. is going to be tested here. I mean, they are very obviously the better team on paper. And ultimately, I do worry that the depth just isn't going to be enough for Team Slovakia to overcome. But look, if you can beat Finland, you can play with anybody. And Slovakia has done that. It's going to be a challenge, to say the least, because Team USA is very obviously, at this point, the second best team left in the tournament.
I think the U.S. haven't hit their stride yet, and I think that if they now obviously this was like if for them to go and beat Sweden like they did, I think that's a good statement win for them. But I do think that like Slovakia, eventually the magic runs out on a team like this. Like as good as of a story it's been, I think they've been playing a little above their head in a way. And I look. People are going to come at me if Slovakia finds a way to beat the U.S. That's fine. I just think that it hasn't been as tough as a road for them. Like, yes, they came away and they beat Finland, in that opener. Pretty good. But, things had to kind of go their way for them to even get into the position, right? They had the goal differential. Even though they lost to Sweden, the goal differential helped them get to, what would be an easier opponent to get into the semis, right? So, in a tournament like this, I just think with the way the U.S. defense is, the way they defend, the way that they can throw so many different looks at teams, they don't have to worry too much other outside of that top players, right? Of the Slavkovskis, the Dvorskys, things like that's where I think the U.S. has that advantage. But look, I think when a team is on a high like this, you have to find a way to channel as much as you can. And the only thing about Slovak is I don't know if they can continue that emotional run for this long.
We are going to find out. 2 big semifinal games coming up in a couple of days, and it should be very exciting. And of course, we will have it all covered for you here on the NHL Squad Show. So make sure you stay with us on our next broadcast. If you never miss an episode of your favorite team's Locked On NHL podcast, well, the Everydayer Club is made for you. You will get ad-free episodes of your favorite team show, plus members-only Discord access and more. So head to the link in the show notes or go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer for more information. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening today. I want to thank David Marasuti of Locked On Leafs, Zach Berman of Locked On Devils. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks for watching the Locked On NHL Squad Show.